these days really prefer to come and establish climate tech startups and not thinking directly as, just the automatic way of thinking of going to cyber or to fintech. They really want to do something impactful, and I think they have the capacity to do that with the right guidance.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Qure Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Bracha Halaf, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much for joining me, Bracha. It's really a pleasure because you are working on some really meaningful things, and that's exactly what this show is about. You are the co-founder and managing partner at Gravity Climate Fund and Venture Studio. So I can already tell that there's two worlds that you're in from the venture capital space and the fund, but a third world which is combining them under under Gravity Climate. And so obviously with your background with a PhD in Biophysics from Weizmann Institute and Masters and Bachelors in Chemical Engineering from Ben-Gurion, it makes sense and sounds like some things that the world needs these days. We just went out of COP27 pretty much with a bang saying, okay, we need to get some stuff done. And so I'm excited to understand a little bit about what you're getting done and the impact that you're having in your own journey. So again, thank you for being here. Bracha, tell me a little bit about your connection to, biophysics, chemical engineering. How did this come about?
Actually, it's funny that you started with that because when I think of myself, I think, I always, the fact that I ended up having a PhD in Weizmann Institute means it goes without saying that I have the ability to get excited by science, right? That's for sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there. But I think that my modus operandus is more of an engineer. And by that, I mean, when I look at things, I want to identify the problems and then find creative solutions to resolve those. And I don't know if you know this, there's a very nice saying about an engineer. There's they say when an optimist looks at a glass, he sees it's half full. When a pessimist looks at the glass, he sees it's half empty. And when an engineer looks at the glass, he says, oh, it could have been half its size. So yes, I think that's the kind of things that the way that I look at things, the way that I the way that I access challenges is how to make the most efficient solutions that are really needed. So that's, I think...
I love it. What guides you? Yeah. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about Gravity Climate Fund and Venture Studio. You've been in the venture space for some time now. Tell me a little bit about, venture for you with that intersection of, from an engineering mindset, solving meaningful problems.
Yeah. So, in the past couple of years, I spent my time as a principal in a Qure Ventures, which is a digital health-focused fund, where I learned all the aspects of being involved with venture investing. This is very, very different from being from my previous position in the Ministry of Energy, where I granted the researchers and the academic institute and startups at their early stages and even pilot and demonstration projects. But it was never from the mindset of financial objectives, right? And in the VC world, it's all about that. And with that in mind, I realized that for doing things, that will make a really good and viable startups in the climate space, there are so many things that has to be taken into account, right? Building a viable company in this space, meaning you have a very strong technology, you have a mindset of commercializing it from the very beginning. You are aware of all the regulatory framework that you're entering. You have very creative ways and different ways to finance your journey throughout the way, which changes through time. And all of those things are things that are, in most cases, you can't find an entrepreneur who's just starting a venture who has all these capabilities in-house and within only himself, right? So when I thought about making a VC that will be really instrumental in helping startups grow and grow the right way, I first wanted to find the best partner for me for this journey. I come from a very strong scientific, engineering, regulatory background, but I lack the entrepreneurship background and the actual business experience, which is so much needed in this space. And that's how I came about to meet my co-founder, Tzafrir Eli. So Tzafrir is a co-founder and the managing partner together with me in this Gravity, in the fund. And he's really considered to be one of the most experienced climate entrepreneurs here in Israel with an outstanding execution track record. He's the co-founder of Enlight Renewable Energy, which is traded in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange as one of the best performing stocks. And that's something that started at 2008 with two of his friends who did all the way from the laptop and their thinking until being a renewable energy producer, not only in Israel, but only in Europe and in the US. So bringing in Tzafrir's experience together with my experience, it actually answers so many things that entrepreneurs in the early stages of venture building in the climate space really need.
So I love it. Take me to your position as chief scientist of Israel's Ministry of Energy. And I'm really curious, from a now VC and venture building, mindset. What was that like? How do you now think through when you're looking at these challenges from a more, national or infrastructure, global perspective? What did you learn acting as the chief scientist there that, we in the tech world, so many different entrepreneurs are going into climate tech today for a very good reason. What are some things that you take from your experience that are relevant to our knowledge, because most people don't get to work on these problems from a governmental or a national perspective?
Yeah, so I think that, I was able to see so many and varied technologies and in really different stages of their lifetime. I saw things that are just initiated in the academia, and I saw technologies that were just imported from elsewhere in the world and didn't need a lot of R&D to implement to implement in here, but did need a lot of regulatory changes in order to implement them. So I think that my perspective now, after seeing so many technologies, seeing the journeys that researchers have to go through the actual and basic research to building a valid prototype, finding actually the right places to make the first pilots, the first demonstration, finding their POCs, partners for making this, and then later on thinking about the right business model to incorporate it into the industry. Those are so many challenges that entrepreneurs have to go through in this space in particular, that I think that this is something that caused a lot of the bad reputation that clean tech had at the time, because there were many early stage companies that didn't reach maturation and didn't really fulfill all their potential because of all the challenges that they had to face with, and because at the end there was not good reception in the market for such technologies, and there was not enough willingness to pay for this, and there were not. So it was like a nice to have, not a must have as these days. But I think that, I mean, we are now really at the turning point with everything that has to do with climate change. I think that there is no question about whether or not it's happening. There is no question of whether or not we need more implementation of existing technologies. But what is more interesting is that there is no question that we need to invent new technologies. And this part is where I think the VCs such as Gravity is coming into action. It's the creation of new ventures that will become the next big the next big things, the next Teslas, the next Amazons, but in the climate space. And for that, as I mentioned, I mean, it's you cannot expect entrepreneurs to know all what is expected, what kind of challenges they're expected to face with. And they need some experts and so some people that are veterans from this industry who can guide them from the very initial inception stage.
So let's spend some time creating some inspiration for potential technologies that will be meaningful in the coming years, reaching net zero.
Yeah.
You know, take me through your own perspective on, if I was a young entrepreneur excited to go into climate tech and tackle something that, you know, we all need to be worried about. What are some things that I should be thinking about, working on, looking into? We can go as high level as you want or as detailed as you want. I'm with you. Okay,
so let me just try to put it into the right framework. So when we're talking about climate change and climate technologies, we at least in Gravity look at three different angles. The first one is the mitigation. Okay, so in mitigation, there is a way to reduce the actual emissions of CO2, either by creating more novel technologies for renewable energies or making the actual renewable energy more efficient, less costly, more scalable. So that's on one end. And then, of course, in order to use the renewable energy, although there are intermittency characteristics, you need to add storage into this. So there's a lot of new materials and new methods to make storage much more cost effective and much more compatible to its use. I mean, having a large amount. If you look at the transportation sector, so for EVs, for private vehicles, yes, there's no problem in carrying a battery. But when you're going into trucks, then you have to find another way of either storing the energy or using another engine, such as hydrogen or making or moving the vehicles through wireless roads that will transmit electricity directly to the wheels and without the need for extra batteries. So everything that has to do with energy generation, energy storage, and then energy management. I mean, there are so many ways in which we can reduce the actual need to build more power plants and even to build more, even renewable energy. It takes space, right? It takes a lot of land. It takes a lot of so some people would say that it's not a nice view. I argue with that, but there are some that claim such. So yes, we need to find ways in order to manage our demand for energy in a much more clever way, in order that so we won't need to produce so much energy, and also use the current infrastructure that is already in place, such as the natural gas infrastructure, and use it instead of in gas turbines. Use it with fuel cells, which are much more efficient, which are much cleaner in terms of emissions. Using those, so everything that has to do with really mitigating and reducing the emissions. This is in one angle. On the other angle comes all the things that you can do with the CO2 that was already emitted, which is to capture it, and then you can either store it, or you can even use it and utilize it to create new materials and fuels. So it's a way of, recycling recycling fuels. Fuels are used, emissions are being emitted, but then you capture the CO2 and you build a new kind of fuel, synthetic fuels, which is called, and then you can use it, and mainly that's a great solution for the aviation industry, right? Because they cannot use batteries, and I'm not sure that hydrogen is can so easily be implemented in aviation. So that's all. That's the part of carbon sequestration. But then there's also, when you think about climate change, and the new era of energy, you need a lot of materials that are. And the way to get them is through mining and through utilizing resources in our planet, and that's also that's true for lithium and cobalt that are needed for the renewable energies. But that's true also for every other mining materials that we are currently using, regardless of the energy transition. And there are different ways to do that. You can do that in a much more efficient way, much more sustainable way that needs a lot less of water and energy in order to produce those materials. So that's that. And then there is something that we shouldn't forget about, is that the adaptation, because regardless of what we are going to do and how successful our technologies are going to be and how much they can reduce the emissions to the atmosphere, we are facing a very big and critical effects that the climate change will create in here. It has to do with all aspects of our life, right? I mean, there are things that has to do with, there is a different risk assessment that you have to bring into all industries regarding their supply chain that will be affected by climate change. There is the need for more accurate sensing of climate conditions in different locations, where one wouldn't like to live in a building that is facing a road where the pollution is so high, and where the level of environmental measurements are very bad. So you need to provide those measurements. And there's also things that has to do with just adapting to the actual extra demand that energy will be needed in, let's say, in residential areas, the need for more air conditioning in the summer, etc. And then how would you do that with the current infrastructure? You cannot put more electric lines, and you cannot dig under the current cities and streets. So you need to find much better ways either to build the buildings in better installation and such, and more importantly, I think, is the way to manage the electricity demand in those buildings, and to use technologies, new technologies such as fuel cells, such as hydrogen storage, such as local energy generation on the buildings, on the walls of the buildings. I mean, there are so many ways that can be done. And on top of all of this, there comes the digitization aspect of that. I mean, to every hardware that you can think about in climate, you can make it much more efficient. You can scale it much rapidly. You can bring so much more advantageous qualities to it by adding a digitization layer to it, to that. And that's can be either using AI and machine learning for energy management, or it can be using prediction models that will, together with sensors, will be able to predict what will be the temperature in the next day, and then to be prepared for that in terms of energy generation and such. I mean, there are so many things, and I think that whoever you are and whatever your capabilities are and your interest, you can apply it to some climate technologies if you wish to. And what I can say is that I'm really happy to see that entrepreneurs coming from all backgrounds, and especially the ones, and this is something that we just recently started to see, especially ones that come from some elite Israeli technological units such as A200, just as yourself and other special intelligence units. They these days really prefer to come and establish climate tech startups, and not thinking directly as, I mean, just the automatic way of thinking of going to cyber or to fintech. They really want to do something impactful, and I think they have the capacity to do that with the right guidance.
It sounds to me that what I'm taking from the last 10 minutes, and thank you for that, is that there's a lot to do. There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot to do, and a lot to think about. And in a world where we are living in, this is our world, and it's an interesting time to be an engineer and to be at a point at a position of impact where you can move the needle on something as critical as literally the world that we're in. So Bracha, thank you very much for the time, the energy, your own effort, and everything that you're doing in this space. And thank you for the inspiration over these specific 20 minutes. And I really appreciate it. And I'll continue cheering Gravity Climate Tech and Venture Fund from the side. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. For my pleasure.